In the name of God, the Creator, our Redeemer, and the Spirit who is our companion. In the gospel, finally, Jesus is alone, free to rest and to pray. The multitude has been fed, more people healed, and the disciples set off by boat to the other side of the Sea of Galilee. There they will continue their mission of bringing hope and healing to people desperate for new life. Even on the mountain, Jesus can feel the winds picking up. So he walks down to the water's edge. He can see that their little boat is being battered by the waves. Jesus realizes his disciples must be terrified, and he begins to make his way toward them. And we know the rest of the story. There are several details in Matthew's account that make a lot of difference. When the disciples are so afraid that there's some kind of supernatural, threatening apparition coming toward them, Jesus says, "Take heart, it is I, do not be afraid." When Jesus says, "It is I," he is evoking the I am statements that trace their origin to Moses meeting God in the burning bush, when God identifies as, "I am who I am." The Gospel of John is chock full of I am statements. I am the bread of life. I am the good shepherd. What happens next is instructive. Peter, always anxious to put himself first, tells Jesus, "If it is you, command me to come to you on the water." This is not Peter crying out in faith, not yet. This is Peter putting Jesus to the test. Does that ring bells for you? Remember Satan taunting Jesus in the wilderness? "If you are the Son of God, command these stones to become bread." Jesus responds to him, "It is written, you shall not put your God to the test." We're also reminded of the Pharisees who will taunt Jesus when he is hanging on the cross. "If you are the Son of God, come down from the cross and save yourself." In this moment, wanting Jesus to prove himself, Peter has, in effect, abandoned the group's mission. The gospel is all about celebrating the presence of God in ordinary and extraordinary ways. It's not about putting self and ego first or requiring God to deliver proof on demand, as tempting as that may be. Well, we know Peter's hubris doesn't work out very well for him. Jumping off the boat, he begins to sink and cries out, "Lord, save me." Now that is a genuine prayer. Jesus grabs him and brings him back into the boat. And in that way, Peter is restored both to his friends and his mission, chastened, at least for now, and the winds and waters calm. I've always felt a personal affinity with Peter. You know, act first, think later. And I can't help noticing, sometimes with a little bit of resentment, the people who out-Peter me. At this point in my spiritual development, I'm trying to learn some warning signs that show me that my ego is beginning to derail me from my sense of the presence of God. When my ego is blinding me to the person God created me to be and who, deep down, I really am. Here are 3 of my warning signs. Number 1, well, I already mentioned resentment. It could be about anything, but for me, it's usually when I feel taken for granted in some way, not recognized, not seen. Actually, this doesn't happen very often, but when it does, or I suspect it has, I'm always surprised how super sensitive I seem to be. Am I so wedded to my accomplishments, reputation, whatever, that I let others determine my sense of self-worth? Letting other people's opinions, real or imagined, live rent-free in my head? Number 2, regret. Have you ever rerun difficult conversations in your memory, making up the perfect rejoinders to what might have been said long ago? Have you run conversations over and over again, now with the perfect response to prove the other person wrong and you right? Of course, the faithful response is to simply let these conversations go. What is past belongs in the past, unless there is some action you need to take for the sake of mutual healing. And number 3, control. Have you ever caught yourself micromanaging, either in your professional or personal life? This really gets us to Peter's frame of mind. He couldn't just feel blessed and safe with Jesus's presence in the storm. Peter has to try to take it over, to shape it into his own idea of what should happen. These instincts, resentment, regret, control, I know they are always with me, just lurking below the surface, as they may have been for Peter. But once we name them, it's possible to keep them in their place. They need not rule my life. We know there will be a happy ending to Peter's story. After the resurrection, Peter begins to understand. He begins to understand that these instincts, far from establishing our place in the world, detract terribly from the sacred souls we are created to be. Over time, Peter can finally place God's amazing presence beyond old assumptions and his desperate desire to win. Maybe it just comes down to this. In times of extreme challenge or grief or pain, when our natural instincts tell us otherwise, we need to make that perfect, pure prayer. Jesus, save me. Now, sometimes we'll feel called to dive into deep water, get into what the great John Lewis called good trouble. Other times, maybe we need to just stay in the boat, even when we're terrified, and just let Jesus come to us, because Jesus always will. Amen.